It's actually a love story. My bread and I were lovers, and we well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of What's Going On at Club Fred. Yeah! Today in this video I'm going to be talking to you about grieving the loss of the big five in your quest for weight loss, the things that you have to give up, and the legitimate grieving process that you have to go through in order to reconcile those changes that you need to make in your life. If you're just joining me for the first time, 15 days ago I finished a fantastic 75-day water fasting adventure. If you want to know more about that, I'll put a link up here for you to my 60-day update. And so far I think this is probably about my my 9th video. So my videos are titled water fasting slash ba 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 ba, and it might seem a little silly or strange to see me eating when the video is entitled water fasting. However, it's all about my reflections of a 75-day water fasting adventure, and of course the most important and even most vital and critical step in the process, the refeeding, so that you can maintain your weight and perhaps even continue to lose weight as I'm doing. So without further ado, let's get started. My idea is that instead of portioning out a little bit of kimchi every day, just have a kimchi bowl that I eat from. And even if I'm doing a little bit of double dipping, it doesn't matter because it doesn't last that long. I've got a couple of different mustards here. This is a Dijon. Try that a little bit. And I have this Dutch grained mustard. Try a little bit of that. A little bit over here. So I'm going to pair some of this sausage with the sauerkraut. And then, as always, the old trusty French's. That's always a good one. Old mayo, which is going to go on the salad liberally. And it's not my normal thing, but mayo, 0 carbs, so it's keeping me in keto. We have a really nice little Facebook group going with a really nice community there. What I've discovered since I stepped out into the world of YouTube is that by simply just sharing my thoughts, there were people that were sitting there ready to go, kind of at the same place I was at the same time, or I mean literally just days behind me, but of the same mind. They were ready, and they found my story inspiring. And I don't think it's that I was so inspiring, it's that they just needed that extra little push. And so now we've connected, we've found each other, so to speak. And these guys, there's 2 guys specifically right now that are in an extended fast. I call it a WFA, water fasting adventure. You know, that just makes me so happy to know that just by stepping out and doing something for myself and then sharing that with others has been helpful to them. That, and I don't even need to say that made it all worthwhile, because it was worthwhile on its own. It was totally worthwhile on its own. It didn't need validating, but just to know, at the same time, just to know that it's resulted in helping others just makes me so happy. It's a really nice twist on things. A little bit of kimchi and meatball together is really nice. Wow. Wow. I've been experimenting with bacteria cultures for quite some time. I started to make my own yogurt. And I learned about bacteria and how it stays alive, and I would even freeze my yogurt. I would strain it. I have a yogurt strainer. I would strain it. All the whey drains out of it, and that is Greek yogurt. That's all it is. And then I would take basically plastic shot glasses and freeze shot-sized 1 ounce portions of strained thick yogurt and use that as a starter culture when I made my yogurt. It's interesting that freezing yogurt does not kill the bacteria. And then later, I became an avid sourdough bread baker, and I began with collecting and making my own sourdough culture. And making sourdough culture is basically just putting out some flour and water and collecting the natural bacteria and yeast. Well, there is natural bacteria, and there's some dormant bacteria and yeast in the flour, and then also collecting it from the air and creating a strong enough culture, bacteria culture, that can fight off and resist bad bacteria, and it becomes a stable culture in its own right. It's strong and healthy and vibrant, and when you feed it, it just flourishes. And that culture It's kind of weird in a way at first because it's like another child. It's like another baby, and you have to feed and nurture it, but not really. I once went away for 2 months and came back and revived my starter culture. I love to create, and if I'm not creating something in a wood shop or in a house or building a house, I like to create in the kitchen. I really took to making bread. I love making bread. I was so passionate about my bread, and I've been enjoying that kind of process for absolute years. But I even bought a commercial KitchenAid mixer. Cost me $1,000. A grain mill for milling my own wheat berries. And I was in this quest for the perfect bread, and I have high standards, and I wasn't satisfied or happy. Sometimes I made something okay, but my results weren't consistent. And I eventually evolved my bread and my process to suit my tastes and my lifestyle. And I also wanted to use a high concentration of whole wheat flour that I ground myself. And most bakers would tell you that can be tricky with bread, because the more whole wheat flour you put into your bread, the heavier or denser it becomes. So I experimented with that a lot, and I would take my whole grains, my whole wheat flour, which is perfect because I ground it fresh. A wheat berry has 3 parts: the germ, the endosperm, and the bran. And when you buy whole wheat flour, they have been separated out and then reintroduced into a different mix, and a lot of the bran is taken out because that's what goes rancid the fastest. And what's put back together isn't always even from the same wheat berry. The wheat berries that I would buy, I planted them and they grew wheat, which was really nice to kind of see what I was eating. I would take my whole grain flour, my whole wheat flour, and mix up some of my sourdough culture, and that would ferment overnight. I have to put this kimchi away or I'll eat too much. Can you eat too much kimchi? I don't know. Bread and me were getting a divorce. When you're passionate about something, and I wasn't just passionate about the flavor, the texture, and eating the bread. I was passionate about making that damn bread. Every step of the way, from grinding my grains to kneading the bread, to forming the loaves, to watching them rise, to baking them, to adding steam to my oven, and everything that I did was well researched and considered. It's actually a love story. I loved my bread. My bread and I engaged in foreplay before we became intimate, before we consummated, before I consumed. Maybe that all sounds corny, that metaphor. But it makes sense to me. So during my fast, my 75-day fantastic water fasting adventure, I realized that I was going to give up carbs. I realized that I wasn't going to eat bread anymore. And I went through a grieving process. Grieving follows the suffering of a legitimate loss of something you loved in your life. And I loved my bread. Well, while I was fasting, I was doing work on my physical body and also on my mind. I was rethinking and resetting the way I thought about food. Now, since I completed my fast, I have not eaten any carbs. I do not consume sugar, and I had to adjust even some of the foods I ate that naturally contain sugar. But I don't eat, I call it the big five. No potatoes, no rice, no pasta, no bread, and no sugar. But as you are witnessing, I eat such a beautiful variety of food in a pretty high volume. And I eat like a king. Aside from removing the big five from my diet, and taking out two other lovers in my life, carrots and tomatoes, which I really love in my salad. So it is a little bit of a sacrifice. But otherwise, quite literally, if there was anything else that I really wanted to eat right now on my to have on my plate, I would have it. So I'm eating everything that my heart desires. I'm not looking for bread replacement or sugar replacement. I'm not. I have eliminated those cravings for those items, and I don't believe it's actually very smart to try to look for bread replacement or using sweeteners. Just excise those things out. Just take them out of your diet. Because if you're looking for bread replacements, you're still craving bread. There is a practical element to bread, of course. It is a placeholder for the other items you put in between a sandwich. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about, grieving. I grieved the loss of a love in my life, which was bread. But I rebounded by having an affair with so many other delightful beauties, like asparagus, and eggs and cheese and bacon and sausage and meatballs and blue cheese and avocado and salmon and my salad, cottage cheese and eggs and feta and pumpkin seeds and sauerkraut and kimchi. There's so much I can have. So by bringing those pleasures to me, I'm not thinking about what I'm not eating. It doesn't even occur to me, oh, I can't have that. It's over. When you suffer a loss, it's a deep wound in your heart. And I'm not even being profound. And they say, when you're suffering, when you're grieving, they say, oh, it sounds trite, but time will heal. And it does. And over time, you find new pleasures and you find new relationships, and you don't hurt the same anymore. You might always have a scar, but the wound heals. And you make new relationships and you discover new pleasures. And I've done all of that here. So I rebounded. And I'm okay with that now. So the good news is, and I believe I'm day 15, so I'm starting my third week. This morning I'm down to 196.5 pounds. And that's 4 pounds more than my all-time low weight. Remembering, of course, that when I started refeeding, I gained 6.5 pounds. And so for these last couple weeks, as I've tried to find my place and then finally adjusted into, I guess, moderate ketosis, where I've maintained that by eliminating certain offenders in my diet, I'm now losing. And my first concern was just maintenance. I didn't want to gain. Maintenance would have been good enough as long as I was eating happily. Some people said that I was simply eating too much and that's why I gained weight. And as I thought about it and monitored my status, I wasn't in ketosis anymore, and throughout my entire fast I was in heavy ketosis. So now I see that I'm staying in moderate ketosis by analyzing my foods and adjusting things a little bit. I'm staying in that. I'm eating what I want, I'm eating as much as I want in my 1 hour window. I don't feel deprived at all. I'm so happy. I feel so good. And now I'm actually losing weight. So I guess my goal is to my goal is to get to about 165 pounds. And right now I'm 196.5 pounds. 60 to 70 to 80, 90. That's 31 more pounds. That's still a lot of weight. You know, that might make me look sick, ill. I'm not sure. But I've already committed to wanting to run a marathon next summer. Right now it's the end of July 2018. So I have a year to train, but I want a really lean body. And I need to start exercising. Well, that just about wraps things up for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found this video beneficial and useful to you. And if you stayed with me till the end, I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing my journey with me. And as always, love yourself, stay safe, and be awesome. There's nothing to talk about that I haven't already said. So that would be, is that right? 65, 75, 85, 95, yeah. I'm so lazy.